Hey, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is Dr. David Farnham with Cutting Edge Foot and Ankle, and you're listening to another amazing podcast of MedNation, the show that involves two podiatrists, or one, unfortunately, this week, having conversations with industry experts for people who love to learn and anything from head to toe. Today, we invited a dear friend and amazing colleague, Dr. Daniel Hall, to our podcast. Welcome to MedNation, Dr. Hall.
Thank you for having me, David. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a little bit about your accolades and background, Dr. Hall. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Me and my wife opened our practice back in 2014 in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Private practice has been, highs and lows like anybody else, but overwhelmingly, I think we've been pretty successful. I've been pretty active in the hospital community. I'm double board certified by the American Board of Foot and Ankle Surgery, as well as the American Board of Podiatric Medicine. I've served in a litany of roles at my local hospital, including surgery department chairman, section chief, currently medical staff president. I sit on the board of trustees, medical executive committee, credentials committee, pretty much everything that a physician can be a part of as far as an administrator and medical staff leadership. I've pretty much touched. So it's been a blessing and an honor, man. I've been in practice 8 years, and I feel very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in.
Yeah, and going through your of course, I mean, you and I can have a full, literally, podcast of all your accolades. Trust me. And I've known you for a long time. You're extremely humble, and you're such a wealth of knowledge. But you do all these things, run a successful practice. You're on the lecture circuit, and we talked about, and we're going to get further detail about all your, of course, academic or leadership services. It's not very common that we see a podiatrist, even in the past and even now. I know we're seeing it more with more progression, but in these type of leadership positions at hospitals. Can you tell us more about your journey, how that kind of fell into your lap, and kind of the passion behind it?
Yeah, so without getting into too much detail, me and my wife, we purchased a practice right out of residency, and when I tell you, David, I thought I crossed every I, dotted every T when it came down to, okay, the vetting process, so to speak. We thought everything was good, and it turned out not to be so hot. And, me and my wife, we really had to really hustle and grind. So, the first thing we thought of was, okay, you know what? There's 3 big local hospitals nearby, every single day. I mean, we weren't busy. I mean, we had, I don't know, maybe 5 patients a day to start. So we had some free time, So what we decided is we're just going to split up, and we're going to go to the doctor's lounge every day for lunch, different hospital, and just be visible. Attending the quarterly medical staff meetings, attending the department chair or the section meetings that every hospital has. In my case, the surgery section meeting was very helpful. Hospital outings, golf tournaments, fundraisers, Christmas parties, you name it, we did it. And just really showing up is, I think, 80% of success. The other 20% will get you there, but you'd be amazed at how many people just fail to show up, fail to be present. And another thing was signing up for committees. I'm like, well, hey, I got all the free time in the world, so I signed up for, the IT committee and the infection control committee. I don't necessarily have a passion for IT or infection control, but it's how I learned about the hospital system. It's how I met colleagues, and it's something that I would encourage every young podiatrist that's graduating residency, whether you're joining an orthopedic practice, making 6 figures, or whether you're starting up from the ground up. Show up, man. And I think you'd be surprised at just how successful you can be.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredibly wise for saying that. I know I can speak on behalf of Dr. Lanier, who's not with here today, is she says the exact same thing, and she's on the similar mindset and headspace as you and I. She loves to show up. She loves to be present. She loves to be a part of it. We're down in the doctor's lounge, even despite add-on cases during lunchtime and things of that nature. And I think that, those are wise words,
Definitely. A lot of my colleagues, they kind of look at me like, man, why do you operate at the hospital? Why don't you operate at a surgery center? I'm like, listen, man, my turnover might be 40 minutes, but I get to walk past an anesthesiologist, a family practice doctor, internal medicine, hospitalist, rheumatologist. Like I get to see and interact with multiple specialties every single day. So to me, I look at that as, hey, being present, being visible, that's a potential referral source versus, okay, we'll have a 20-minute turnover at the surgery center. To me, it's another way of networking and just being present, being visible. I was
Absolutely.
fortunate enough to be the first podiatrist in Southwest Louisiana at this hospital to have block time, something that
That's
most other
incredible.
specialties take for granted.
Right.
But that block time is very important to me. I earned it, and it's something that, yeah, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes energy, and yeah, it may take a little bit more time out of my day, but I think I have developed relationships that have certainly led us on the path to success.
Yeah, and to your credibility, I just want to say, it was kind of thanks to you and motivation from you actually that my partner, Dr. Lear, and I actually talked, and thanks to you, of course, it's funny, I approached the chief of surgery here at our local hospital, which we operate at, and I'm actually joining committees very similar to the ones you're joining here.
Come on, man.
Uh,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, first comes those, and then comes interim CEO of the hospital. That's what I'm hoping.
Well,
Um,
hopefully so. Hopefully so.
but it's thanks to you. So I want to thank you for that because it's motivation through you that I approached our guy, Dr. Lanier, and we're both talking about saying, hey, I want to be present at a lot of these things. And, like you said, it's that mindset of being present instead of like most podiatrists or physicians in general are like, hey, just get it done and go home. So
No, you're absolutely right, man. We certainly need a seat at the table. My wife has heard this a million times because I say it often. I'm like, there are literally three types of people in the world. There's ones that make things happen. There are those that watch things happen, and then there are those that ask, "What the hell just happened?" And if you don't know which you are, you're probably not the one making things happen. So we always stay, we meet monthly. We figure out, hey, you know what's our market share? How can we improve on this? And constantly just trying to better yourself. When you think you got it figured out and you think, you've reached the top of the hill, chances are you're about to get passed by. So that's kind of a motto we live by. And even though other people can say, man, you've done this, you've done that, you've achieved all these things, it's hey, there's someone else always waiting and hungrier to come and take my spot. So I'm going to keep fighting and grinding as long as I can.
Absolutely. And in fact, my next Instagram post is your quote, so it's okay.
I want credit on that, David.
Oh, don't worry, you'll get that credit. I'll even I'll throw you in there. You know how creative we are on social media. So, I know you and your wife practice or bought your practice in 2014 there in Lake Charles. Charles, tell me about that adventure and buying it. You didn't start it from scratch, correct? You bought it from a gentleman, or how did that work? And tell me about
Yeah,
that
so
that adventure.
me and my wife actually we signed on the dotted line with a letter of intent to purchase a practice at the end of my first year in residency. So we graduated at the same time in 2014. So at the end of our first year, we had reached out to she was a single practitioner here in Lake Charles. We kind of looked at the area, very up and coming. Anticipated growth was exponential. My wife and I both grew up in relatively small towns, so we kind of wanted that for us and our family and kids and such. We want a place where we can raise a family. We want a place that was relatively affordable. Good cost of living. And we really settled on Louisiana. I mean, Louisiana's leads the nation in diabetes and other different medical complications. So we thought it was a great place to kind of hang our shingle here. But yes, we bought an existing practice, so we kind of had the space built out, but it wasn't what we thought it was cracked out to be. We didn't know what accounts receivable and outstanding balances and copays and EMR and remember the ICD-9 to ICD-10 transition that happened right when we started. So it was good to kind of have the build out, if you will, but it wasn't a thriving, successful practice as we had once thought. So yeah, I mean, we bought the practice. I think I forget. I want to say it was 265,000. The banks at that time, and we met with, God, 7 banks. Only heard back from one, but all you need is one to give you a loan, you know?
That's
So
right.
we were able to secure that loan. We had to put up, I think, 10%. So it was going to be like $26,000 of our own money that we had to kind of scrape together through residency. You know, my wife and I didn't come from money. So, you know, we couldn't just call mom or dad and, you know, ask for that loan. So, second year, first year, we really had to, you know, really kind of save. And that was a lot of hospital meals in residency, unfortunately, to save that money, but we did it. Purchased the practice, got a line of credit, and you know, kind of the rest is history. There's just a lot that goes into opening a practice, but you know, we sat down, we really had a step-by-step approach. The best thing I could tell any of our listeners that are considering opening up a practice is make a business plan. You
Yeah.
know, I hear a lot of people reach out to me on social media now saying, hey, you know, I'm thinking about opening up a practice. Do you have any recommendations? I'm like, well, send me your business plan. And I can tell you that I've only had one. Shout out to Dr. Bowie that had a business plan. All the rest did not have a business plan, and I don't hear from them very often after I request that business plan. So a business plan was key to keeping us on track, and the rest was kind of history, man.
Yeah, I mean that's so inspiring, right? I mean, I know a lot of people look up to you, and you know that leads into the next, and you kind of segued it perfectly. You know, your journey, you know, is hard work, and you know your partner and you, and well, your partner obviously your other half and the missus. You know, you guys had that business plan in place. You guys worked hard. What do you think the key thing is, and now that you're this far in managing a practice?
Um, you know, I think the key thing is, you know, balance. Um, you know, having someone like my wife that I can trust, and, you know, she really deals with most of the business aspects of it, you know, quarterly tax estimates, employees, payroll taxes, property taxes. I mean, all those things she really has done a great job at kind of managing our practice. I mean, we certainly have an accountant, financial planners, you know, bank loan officers, but she really does the heavy lifting when it comes to managing the financial aspects of the practice. And that's allowed me to, you know, really focus on medicine and get involved. So, you know, without her, man, it would be, I don't know where we'd be. I certainly wouldn't be in the position I'm in. I can tell you that.
Absolutely. And, you know, that goes back to, I know, you know, you gave excellent advice about having a business plan. Cause like you said, I feel like probably 90% of people that hit you up on social media or that you consult for, or, you know, in terms of consulting for, you know, don't have that. What other piece of advice do you have for young entrepreneurs out there?
You know, location, um, you know, one of the saddest stories I heard, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but, you know, he reached out to me and he had opened his own practice. He had secured a, you know, office space, and I mean, had a website, had a tax ID number. I mean, he was full throttle, man. And, come to find out that, and he was practicing out of New York, I believe. New York, yes, New York State. And almost all the insurance panels were closed for him. So what do you do, man? What do you do when, you know, Blue Cross Blue Shield and United Healthcare and Aetna and some of these other big commercial insurances are no longer accepting new tax ID numbers? You know, you're in a tough spot. So I would recommend anybody that's leaning towards private practice is reaching out to a credentialer. It's going to cost you a couple $100, but they'll be able to provide you invaluable insight as to, hey, these panels are open, these panels are closed, and really find out where exactly you want to practice. I mean, I know we all want to practice, you know, in Nashville or in a nice big city where there's things to do. But man, if you can't get on an insurance plan, it might be a tough road for you.
Yeah. I mean, you can practice all you want. You just won't get paid for it.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, I mean that's where I'd start. One is, you know, location is going to be key. I think you also have to manage expectations. You know, you want to go practice in, you know, Miami or more of a kind of city or populated area. Okay, you know, maybe owning your building is just never going to be in the cards for you. And that's
Right.
okay. You know, that's fine. But you have to consider that when you're paying overhead and building out an office space, and, you know, who are you working for exactly? and understanding that, hey, you know what, maybe I don't need 8 treatment rooms and pay this huge heavy note. Maybe I can downsize. So the big mistake I see people is, one, they kind of just pick a place and don't really do their due diligence on the location. And then two, sometimes they tend to oversize. They think, well, I'm going to be busy in a year. I'm going to be busy in 2 years. So let me get 6 treatment rooms. And then you find out that, man, that note is a lot heavier than I thought it was. And then you find yourself scrambling to make ends meet.
Yeah, no, that's a great piece of advice, because I feel like people don't think about that. I think people consider location, like you said, they see the shiny lights, right, or the shiny thing. Hey, Nashville's a great city, Manhattan, Miami, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's so many more diamonds in the rough, I feel like, in some of these places that, I mean, people would make a killing, as opposed to, hey, no, I want to go practice right in the dead center of Manhattan.
Yeah, I think me and my wife were talking about this the other day. I think the best part of our training in school is all the different areas you get to intern or extern at. So, we externed in Miami, DC, Seattle, Portland, California. I mean, you get to go all over the country. And, for prospective students that are still in podiatry school, I would really take this time to really venture out. Yeah, it's going to be expensive. I know you got student loans and they don't pay for, room and board for the 30 days of the month that you're there externing, but getting to see different parts of the country is invaluable as far as where exactly you want to practice. Back when they were still doing the Synthes AO courses in residency, our first year was in New Orleans. And man, it was just like a vibe. And I'm like, babe, the people down here are amazing. They're so friendly. The weather is nice year round. Like, we should really consider Louisiana. And hey, went on a website, found this practice for sale in Lake Charles. I think there was like 4 other practicing podiatrists at the time. I flew down there like a month later and just happened to be sitting next to, at that time, the CEO of one of the big hospitals. We literally sat next to each other on the plane. And we were just chatting it up. And before you know it, he's giving me a tour of the hospital Monday before I fly out. So I look at that as a sign from God that, hey, it's meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. If that wasn't a sign, I don't know what is.
It's meant to be. Our flight was delayed, and we ended up just chatting at a bar for like almost 2 hours. I'm like, babe, you can't make this up. Like, I'm literally chatting with the CEO of the hospital that we're probably going to be privileged at within, a year. It was incredible. It was amazing.
So in venturing back, talking about, your leadership roles there at the hospital and your many roles that you partake in, kind of tell me your day-to-day duties for a lot of those roles, and how do you play a role, and what do you do during those roles?
Yeah. So, as medical staff president, you meet with the CEO once a month. You meet with the chief medical officer once a week. You've got monthly meetings. You've got credentialing. You've got, review of incident reports, and it's a lot of work, but it is by far and away the proudest career achievement I've had to date, to be considered and voted amongst your peers and colleagues that you're in a position to leave our medical staff. 36 years old, 37 years old. I mean, it really has been an honor. So yes, it's a lot of busy work. Yes, it's a lot of other things I'd rather be doing, to be honest with you, but it's a privilege to do what we do. And that's how I think there's certain aspects of medicine, whether it be chatting in front of our EMR or waiting on hold with Blue Cross to have a peer-to-peer about an MRI approval, or, some of the monotonous things that we deal with on a daily basis. I think sometimes we can lose sight of just how wonderful and how big of a privilege it is to practice medicine and treat people. As podiatrists, listen, we don't often save lives, but we save lifestyles.
Absolutely.
And I'm all about getting a patient back to doing what they were doing pre-injury. And it's a very gratifying feeling to have somebody come limping into your office and walking out pain-free. I think it's probably one of the most unique aspects of medicine. A family practice doctor certainly can't always do that. So I think that's what makes our field unique. But kind of circling back, it's a privilege to do what we do. But I think the biggest kind of thing that I do now as medical staff president is really just kind of represent the medical staff. Certain times there are things in which we as a medical staff think needs to be appropriate, and the chief financial officer calls you and says, you know what, Dr. Hall, that's just not going to work for the budget, or whatever the case may be. So
Right.
you are representing your peers and colleagues, and there's just no greater calling, no greater feeling than that.
I'm just going to throw this in there. I mean, all that sounds extravagant, by the way, sitting at the big boy table, actually. But
That's
I'm
right.
I'm going to, again, steal us. You're just full of these wonderful quotations. I'm stealing the, we don't save lives, we save lifestyles. And by the way, to all our listeners, there'll be merch made.
That's right, man. I mean, it's true though. Like, and honestly, I mean, listen, podiatry has come so far in a relatively short amount of time. 50 years ago, our colleagues 50 years ago would just be smiling ear to ear to see what we as a profession has done.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, there are colleagues that don't necessarily hate podiatrists. They just don't understand how podiatry has evolved. And when you're at the table, when you're at these meetings and you're consulting on patients and they're seeing your work and hearing, oh, how wonderful Dr. Hall or Dr. P was from patients there, it really just kind of educates them on the field of podiatry. Just like when we graduated from school, I mean, hell, 30% of the meds we studied and memorized in pharmacology are no longer on the market. So
Right.
If you're thinking that our colleagues, whether it be orthopedist or whether it be rheumatologist or whether it be nephrology, endocrinology, whatever the case is, if you think they're keeping up with the advancements that podiatry has made, you're sorely mistaken.
Oh,
and
agreed.
Being present and visible and kind of showing them that, oh yeah, I didn't know podiatrists did that. I didn't know podiatrists fixed ankle fractures. I didn't know they did, wound care. I didn't know they did this, and this. It's a calling, it's one of those things in which, hey, you don't know what you don't know. And when you're able to be in a position, another thing that I do is I'm a faculty member of the LSU Family Medicine program. So a resident will rotate through my office or through wound care, and they're like, dang, I didn't realize you did all of this.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, man, it's just a foot and ankle. It's an isolated spot. But truth be told, because medicine has evolved and advanced so much, I mean, you look at an orthopedist, for instance, general orthopedics rarely is something. There's a knee guy, there's a hip guy, there's a hand guy, there's a shoulder guy. I mean, they're very specialized now.
Right.
And the foot and ankle is no different.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. So congratulations, by the way. I heard you were newly appointed to the as regional medical director as a home health care and hospice area. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. So, obviously dealing with, limb salvage patients and a lot of wound care. You develop relationships with different home health agencies and companies and such. And, they reached out about 2.5 months ago and asked if I'd had any interest in being, medical staff director. Now, I have no doubt that had I not been chief of surgery, had I not been medical staff president, had I not been this, that, and the fourth, that I don't think they're knocking on Dr. Hall's doors. I think those kind of appointments and positions have certainly paved the way for, medical directorship. But yeah, they asked, I always say yes to any opportunity. I'm always willing to take a meeting. And the nurses and staff at Amedisys Home Health have been, terrific as far as taking care of my patients. And it's a company that, stands on morals and principles, and it's been a great partnership so far, and I look forward to continuing as such.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I was going to say they didn't come knocking on my door asking for that kind of partnership. So,
it's opportunity presents itself. You just got to be willing to answer the door, man.
Absolutely.
I'm a very optimistic person, and I'm very self-aware of things that happen and don't happen. And I think opportunities are going to find you if you're ready for it, man. So hang tight.
Absolutely. And I, knowing how accomplished you are, let our audience know, and including myself, what are some of your long-term career goals?
Oh, long-term career goals. I would love to see Louisiana Foot and Ankle as a brand across the state. But, I think that medicine is changing. You know, I think it was very I think it was very obtuse and very difficult to talk about the business of medicine 10 years ago. And now it is very much in your face that this is a business, this is your copay, this is your deductible, and this is what needs to happen. And as you see, there was an article published by the Physician Advocate Institute in 2021, and 70% of physicians at that time, so I think that number is quite a bit higher now, are employed by hospitals or corporate entities. That's just the direction that healthcare is going, and you got to have a seat at the table. You got to see those moving pieces. So while I would love to say, yes, Louisiana Foot and Ankle is going to be in, Lafayette, New Orleans, and Baton Rouge, and Shreveport, and some of these other bigger surrounding cities, I mean, hey, we don't know where medicine's going to be in 5 years.
Right.
So ultimately, my goal is to continue treating patients the best way I know how, and I'm hopeful that I still get the opportunity to do such without, Big Brother kind of dictating exactly what we get to do and how we get to do what we do.
And then what about some life goals?
Certainly one, being a present father. I think sometimes we can get so caught up in trying to be successful, and got real estate. We've got, 4 different businesses that me and my wife run. Just being present, man, being at my kids' soccer games is a goal of mine. And it kind of scares the hell out of me sometimes, thinking, well, if I've got a business dinner or I've got a business thing, what am I going to miss out on? The other thing I've learned is the value of your time. I was always the one to say yes to a dinner. I was always the one to say yes to a meeting. And sometimes I'm getting a little more selective about how and where and whom I spend my time with. But life goals are travel, health, happiness, family, and continuing, running a thriving business, man.
Yeah.
What more could you ask for?
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, this basically concludes the podcast. Would you like to add anything else? Actually, I have a question for you. In fact, for our audience, if you could end, this episode with I know you've given plenty of fancy quotes, words to live by, guiding advice. What would you give our audience?
You know what I will kind of give the audience, and this is going to kind of be dedicated to the my private practice folks. And as I had stated earlier, I'm big in the hospital, and I think that hospitals aren't going anywhere. I think as private practitioners, there is some degree of vulnerability. We just don't know where private practice, and we don't know where medicine is heading. So I think that in order to kind of remain successful, in order to remain in the know, if you will, I do think that there's no better way to advance our profession than to be exposed and be present and being visible in a hospital setting. Hospital settings, man, and being affiliated with that, and patients coming to you, your medical staff this, you're here, or, you, David, being active at, multiple hospitals, it just buys you instant credibility. But I also think that we do need to operate in a sense of caution. I think we need to stop trying to, what's the old phrase? Podiatry eats their young.
That's right.
I think that is going to come back to bite you when, okay, well, if this big multi-group only wants to pay you a certain salary, but this hospital will, hey, you just lost an entire referral system. This podiatrist just gained an entire referral system. So being present, being visible, and always being there is going to prevent some of these corporations that come in and say, listen, I can bring in 4 orthopedics and you're going to save 30% on your entire ortho payroll. What do you want to do? These are going to be some difficult decisions these hospitals are going to be making soon. And podiatrists are going to be right behind that. There are practices that are getting bought out, and they're going to be implemented into healthcare systems. And hey, that's a big loss to the private practice guys down the street that still operate and still consult out of those places there. So I think he's being mindful. I think understanding and realizing that this is a relatively small profession, even though we're, in all 50 states, that we need to stick together. I know there's been some calamity, if you will, between some of our organizations. I think kind of getting those things worked out and ironed out and not fighting publicly is also going to advance our profession. But overall, I think it's one, you got to love this shit, man. Can we cuss on your podcast? I cussed anyway. You got to love it, and if you don't love it, if you don't love what you do, this profession is going to eat you alive. And you got to find passion somewhere. Your passion may not be triple arthrodesis and big trauma calls and things like that. And that's okay. It doesn't make you any less of a podiatrist, but you've got to find your passion. You've got to find what drives you, and you really got to love this in order to be successful. And those that are successful, I find, my mentors that I look up to and I consult with, I mean, these guys and gals, they just love it. And that's the last thing is it's okay to ask for help. David, you have mentors. I have mentors. I mentor some people, but find someone that will be your mentor. Ask someone to be your mentor because the Lord knows we need it, and not everybody has the answers. And I certainly don't pretend to be. So when you give me all these compliments and such, man, I'm still learning just like you. Being humble, being open, being honest, I think are all things to live by. And if we can all do those things, man, I think we're all going to be in a better place, not just personally, but as a profession and whole.
Well said. Lifelong learners. Well said.
That's it, man.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening to another wonderful episode of MedNation Podcast. We want to thank Dr. Hall for being a part of. Thank you, Dr. Hall. That was an absolutely incredible episode, and I appreciate you being here.
No, man. Thank you for the invite. I'll come back anytime.
Thank you. We appreciate having this wonderful conversation with Dr. Hall. If you want to hear more conversations like this, join us for our next episode. As always, you can head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify to hear more episodes like this. If you have any questions for Dr. Hall and or us, check out the links in the description below and feel free to email us and connect. We love it. That's all for this week's episode. See you next time.